This is the panel for Prime Video's Fallout, based on the 27-year-old video game. It is the story of haves and have-nots in a world in which there's nothing left to have. 200 years after the apocalypse, the privileged are forced to return to the hellscape their ancestors left behind and are shocked to discover a highly violent universe waiting for them. I hope you didn't fall asleep while I was doing that. Fallout is executive produced by Westworld creator Jonah Nolan, who directed 3 of the series episodes. The series is available to watch right now on Prime Video. Before we introduce our guests, here's a clip.
Hello there. I'm here to show you a wonderful place. A veritable Camelot of the nuclear age. Not made by God Almighty, but the working man.
You can be a hero by purchasing a residence in a Vault-Tec vault today. Because if the worst should happen tomorrow, the world is going to need you to build a better day after.
The mission of the vaults should be important to everyone. To come up to the surface one day and restart civilization. Can you tell me what's happened in the last 200 years?
Holy shit. You're an actual vault dweller.
I am.
I thought all you dipshits were dead. What you're doing is insane.
I don't set the world.
It isn't like the vault out there. It's big.
Higher. I just want to start.
I've had a rough week. Practically every person I've met up here has tried to kill me.
I'm simply going to harvest your organs.
You need to go home. You come from a world of rules, of laws. You should not be alone.
Why did you join the Brotherhood?
To hurt the people who hurt me.
People are going to come after you.
Ain't much stage cleanup here, Volty. Well, now that is a very small drop in a very, very large bucket of drugs. You look out at this wasteland, looks like chaos, but there's always somebody behind the wheel.
Everyone wants to save the world. They disagree on how.
There you are, you little killer.
The show is amazing and is nonstop. So let's welcome our guests to the stage. The production designer and co-producer of Fallout, 2-time Emmy winner, Mr. Howard Cummings. The showrunners and executive producers of Fallout, Geneva, Robertson-Dworet, and Wagner. He plays Maximus, Aaron Moten. She's Lucy McLean, Ella Purnell. And beaming in from the set of White Lotus in Thailand, he plays the Ghoul, Primetime Emmy nominee. Hi, Walton Goggins. How are you?
Hi, Sawadee Cop, everyone. How are you?
So I want to begin with the actors because you represent a different perspective of what is going on in this show and the apocalypse. Ella, I'm going to start with you. You are kick-ass. You want a husband, you're living in a bunker, you're dressed to get married, but look out. Tell us about Lucy.
It was so much fun to play Lucy. What I like the most about her is her just relentless optimism, which could get annoying, but somehow, because of these amazing writers, the way they fleshed out the character, it doesn't, I hope, yet.
Other way
Watch
around.
a little more and
the,
let me know.
The script was annoying, and Ella made it not annoying. I'd just like to clarify.
No, you described Lucy in our first meeting as Ned Flanders in the Apocalypse. And I was like, I want to see that show. Yeah, I feel very lucky.
We used an alarming number of cartoon references. It was like, so, Roadrunner Coyote, and people were like, what are we making?
Thank God for a staple gun that gets you through the apocalypse. If you need anything, you need a staple gun.
Oh, the staple gun.
Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Staple gun, don't light a fire after dark. I have, a lot of tips about surviving the nuclear apocalypse after watching this show.
And then Aaron, Maximus. He is a different kind of soldier from what we see with, for example, with Ella.
Yeah, but also I think a really different kind of soldier story that we are used to seeing. I was happy to get the opportunity to play a person who's just as afraid as he is brave, just as truly a hero as he's pretending to be one. Is really, really interesting guy, and of course, of the three, characters, the only one who was born and raised in the wasteland. So, we did a good job, I think, of mapping out how that changes a person's mentality, how they bend to distrust of people, and how, how you experience a life of running. I don't know, you imagine so many things of like what you could deal with, having been up there your whole life.
Walton, you're the goal. You're the bad guy. Or at least you look like you're the bad guy. But you've got such a tender backstory. I mean,
that's my own life. Can I say one thing really quickly?
Yes.
I'm on a 5-second delay. So all my reactions to what's being said in real time actually time with what people are saying in my world, but it looks like I'm laughing at something that's very serious. It's very funny watching this whole thing go down.
Walton, that's my everyday life.
Please go ahead.
But tell us about the ghoul. He's not all like rawr. He's got a soft side. He was a father.
When I read this script for the first time, I read 2 episodes and I really couldn't believe what I was reading. I knew it was going to be a very unique opportunity to play a person at 2 very unique, very different times in their life. A world that existed before these bombs fell, and a world that he had seen and experienced 200 years after the bombs had fell. He had seen the worst that humanity has to offer. It was a unique tone and a unique moment in our world history, if you will, to begin to talk about these things with the humor that is built into the DNA of the game itself. And it was, one of the most extraordinary rides I've had so far in my career.
For the actors, how does Jonah prep you guys? Jonah Nolan. He directs 3 of the episodes here, including the pilot.
Well, I would say, for me, it was really just an opportunity of understanding who these 2 people were. And we had to really figure out who Cooper Howard was before we understood who the ghoul was. And what we mean by that is like his occupation and who is this guy? Who are the people that he would, his contemporaries, if you will, in Hollywood, and to begin to kind of formulate like his tics and what his day-to-day life was like, and to flesh out his family, which Geneva and Graham did so eloquently on the page, to understand what it is that he lost, and to begin to ask the question or answer the question for ourselves is, why is this guy still around? It's 200 years of everything that he's been exposed to, and there must be something pulling him, whether it's revenge, whether it's looking to see if his family is still alive. All of these different things kind of came up, and it was just a fertile opportunity, fertile collaboration, if you will, to really understand the beginning, to understand the end.
And then for you and Aaron, working with Jonah.
I loved working with Jonah. I think it's not that often that you get to work with a director who has the technical knowledge and skills, but also can give you really fantastic notes and pull out moments in the scene that you hadn't thought of. I think for me, Lucy is such a complex character. She's innocent and she's naive at the start, but she's also not to be underestimated. And for me, there was a crucial moment where Lucy becomes aware of her privilege, going up to the surface for the first time, realizing everything she's ever believed is wrong, right? Having that reality just ripped away from her. And Jonah gave me the most amazing note that I think about all the time. And it was so simple. He said, when you're saying that speech about how you're going to rebuild America to this woman on the surface, just look around you. And it like totally changed the entire trajectory of my character for the season. I still think about that however many, 2 years later, 3 years later. Yeah, big fan of Jonah.
Yeah, he's a wonderful artist. I always think that the best artists in the world are really the best question askers. It's not even about answering those questions. It's about asking them and putting them out into the room. I remember doing an interrogation scene for Maximus early in episode 1, and the questions about what do we imagine that sound is of this suit walking behind me, and we just went on this real rant of question asking together, and then we started rolling the film camera.
So tell us about the journey of Fallout and how both of you came to it.
Well, I mean, it started with Todd Howard talking to Jonah, and then Jonah talking to Geneva. And in the great human centipede of this show, I'm at the very end, happily. As you got to understand, it's a great big sci-fi. Hiring the writer of Captain Marvel makes absolute sense. Geneva's idea to bring me aboard as the writer of the Celery sketch from Portlandia is not the most logical thing. And I don't ever want to know how many fights Geneva had to get me, to bring me on to the show.
There were no fights.
Well, that's very kind of you, I know. But hiring writers is like casting. You're sort of painting with people, and it was Geneva's idea to sort of bring me in, and yeah, I'm gonna owe this lady for the rest of my life, I think.
Well, I just thought Graham was the most necessary component of all this to me, because the games are obviously some of the greatest video games of all time. But I think what makes them unique within the pantheon of great video games is the tone. The Fallout games are this amazing mix of violence and weird humor, and I knew I wasn't going to bring the level of humor that the show needed, so that was Graham, and we'd been longtime friends, so I was just like, thank God it's here when we were offered this project, because it's the perfect thing for us to join forces on.
But if it was just me, Lucy would have never left the vault, and because we wouldn't have the budget for the vault.
It's kind of true.
Yeah.
Thank you, Geneva. Appreciate that.
So, Howard, tell us about working with the original game developers to create the production design.
What's interesting about that question is that I actually didn't. It was very generously allowed to approach the game with the way I was going to see it. And I learned, I'm not a gamer, and the way I learned was to go on YouTube, and I watched the fans with these incredible videos they put together and histories and stuff. And the more I looked at it, the more I began to like the game. I just liked it. And so when I did my initial concepts, we were in a meeting with Todd Howard, and they were sitting there going, "Oh, you're doing the game." And I said, "Yes, because I really like this game." And I said, the big challenge is there's so much detail, it's so big and so epic and so world building. Now we have to actually figure out how to do it. And so, but it was really, the learning the history behind all the stories and how everything's interconnected and the humor of it all, because I'd worked with Jonah before and on very much not comedy, very post-apocalyptic things that didn't have the kind of humor. And so it was like, you know, I remember just trying to do wallpapers in the vault, and the first ones you'll see are kind of dark. And then later on, they just get bigger and bigger and bigger. It's because we got more and more comfortable in figuring out the style of the show and watching the actors and sort of responding to all of that. The blessing was that no one ever told me what to do. They just wanted to know, what do you think it looks like? And I did, and everybody did it, which was exciting. So it was a great group and huge, you know, it's like, hey, let's go to Africa to shoot the apocalyptic, you know, Santa Monica. And, you know, and it happened, which was exciting.
Do you want to, you sure?
Yeah, we dragged him there, and yes.
I don't even like to fly on planes. And I lived on an airplane for the last 3 years, so yeah. I got to know my Ativan and lorazepam tolerances.
Walton, last question for you. How does it feel to play a guy with a nose right now?
You know, I spend about, and I'm not exaggerating here, I spend about 4 minutes in the chair on White Lotus, and it is the greatest experience ever. Yeah, it's just good to kind of have this. It's easier to breathe and all the rest of it. But I do miss him. You know, I miss walking the wasteland with Ella and Aaron, and it was every single day. And you know, like what Howard created and what Jonah did. I mean, he's the kind of the secret and all of this, and we all know his career and all the things that he's written. He's a pretty serious guy, a pretty earnest guy. But the way in which he kind of captured the hyper stylized violence in this show and the tonality of jokes and everything that Geneva and Graham had written, it was it was just what an experience. I look at the people on the stage and I feel like I'm mourning over you right here, but I wish that I was on that stage with you guys, and I just miss you so much, and I can't wait to see you all very soon. Thank you for having us.
But seriously, you were in the makeup chair for what? Quite some hours for the Ghoul. How did that? Talk about just working with your makeup artist and how that informed your performance.
It was extremely anxiety provoking, you know, like from the very beginning. I knew that this was going to be an intense experience, being in that chair. I didn't understand, or I didn't take the time to really think about, because I don't know what I would have done, what my reaction would have been to how long it was going to take. We did 3 tests, and the first one was 5 hours. Every single one of those tests were 5 hours. And Jay Garber is the person that applied the pieces. It was designed by Vincent Van Dyke. We talked ad nauseum about how we wanted this to look and how I could communicate with the audience. And you could still see that it was me. And so Vincent, along with Jake, for the practical application of the piece, just talked about how thin we could make it, so you could still see my facial expressions underneath. At one point, we talked about putting in eye contacts, tried that, and immediately said, no, that just, the eyes are the thing that your eyes make you human. And so we got off that. And it was, by the time we were ready to go, Geneva and Graham came over. We all looked at it one last time and said, okay, this is what we're going to go with. A couple of things I didn't take into consideration when we did this for the first day in New York. What was the heat, to be quite honest with you? It was 106 index, and we took this little Ferrari for a test ride and walked outside, and I immediately sat down on a log and said, oh my God, I'm getting too old for this shit. You know, like this is, the sweat started pouring out of my eyes. And the one thing that I didn't take into consideration with all of these things kind of separating my lips, and when I put in the retainers, the things that kind of cover these pearly white teeth, I couldn't speak. I couldn't get the words out. So, you know, we got over all of that. And by the end of it, it took us about an hour and 45 minutes to 2 hours and 15 minutes in the chair every day, depending on how far we were into the movie that we were watching that morning. It was just a meditation, really. And yeah.
Prime Video's Fallout. Let's thank our guests, Walton, Goggins, Howard Cummings, Graham Wagner, Geneva Robertson-Dworet, Aaron, and Ella.